My name is Aleeya Garcia, and I graduated from the Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning Bootcamp provided by Fullstack. It was very interesting. I had no background in coding, and so kind of jumping into it, I was curious how they were gonna kind of put everything in line and you get the full circle of it. I got my undergrad in neuroscience. And kind of progressing through the course, the second unit was Intro to Coding. Like, this is challenging. And once I had a good foundation and going into the third unit, and playing catch up was hard, but getting the foundation was way worth it, because if I didn't grab that foundation first, the further units I would have struggled hard with. And so I was really glad like how the teachers kind of gave you really good advice and really good resources to improve your coding skills. My original point was to go to medical school. I'm 26. When I was 23, I had a stroke. And to this day, none of my neurologists could figure out why I had a stroke. But they told me like, hey, I know you're pursuing medicine, but I have to finally tell you that the stress-induced environment of medical school will likely cause you to have a second stroke that's way worse. And so here I am, graduated, like, okay, what's my next step? Do I go into my doctorate program and just study more of Alzheimer's disease, preventions, things like that? Or I had my sister and then one of my friends was like, hey, why don't you enter like neurotech? Like, start learning about the tech industry and then seeing how they correlate with neuro. And when we got to convolutionary neural networks, I was super excited about this unit because I was like, oh, hey, neural networks. I know neural networks. You know, the neural network within the brain, the different areas that it reaches, I can kind of have like some correlation to work off of. And then in that unit, I realized that it is similar in the way that the brain has multiple systems and it's intertwining a connection. And this is how the algorithm would work. Well, in that same unit, I was reading an article on how they use CNN or convolutional neural networks to identify different stroke patients based on their faces, whether it was, and me, I'm very passionate about anything that has to do with brain. So I found that unit specifically like, wow, I could do so much with this boot camp. Like, it's just teaching me there's no limit to what I could create. They were really helpful, especially the teachers. Like, they would have office hours very often. We had a chat filled with questions that anyone could see in the course. That say you had the same part of your workshop, you could put that question in the group chat, and then other people would be like, "Oh, this is how I solved it." And the way with coding is there's multiple ways to solve things. And so you would think, oh, I solved it this way, but then your classmate was like, oh, I solved it this way, and it was a much shorter way. So I like that aspect because it took me a while to get my code down to a smaller format, and I would see like, wow, they did it this way, like I'm gonna do it that way next time. Or I would think, let me try that the next time I start my code. So I really liked how they set up the resources when it came to asking questions, and how it was very much open environment, like very, very open. So what really helped me was, at first I was like, how do I even study this? Like, how do I only study the brain, and my techniques with the brain was through visualizing it. So how do I incorporate that? And so it actually helped me, and then I helped a couple of my classmates when I incorporated how I studied for neuro into how I studied for coding. And every time I wrote a line of code, below I would explain what each syntax of that code meant. And at the end, I would kind of story tell, like, in this coding, my syntax was used to create da 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 da, and that really helped. And I ended up helping a lot of my classmates put together their Visual Studio code, put in some color in there. That way it's easier to read, and I feel like color makes the world brighter and also helps the brain. To be scared and to have self-doubt will happen. That is something that is promised. But the bonus of that is that there's always going to be uncomfortability when there's growth. Honestly, just don't give up. This is a very challenging thing when you put yourself into it, but it's worth it as long as you just figure out what works best for you. I would say limitless. that's the word that comes to mind after I graduated was now I can, they give you so many resources, so many websites like, hey, look at these projects because like my teacher said, coding is muscle memory. You have to keep doing it in order for you to retain it. And so they give you these websites, these resources to work on little mini projects. And working on these projects, reading these articles over what people created makes you think like, dang, I could create something cool like this. It almost gives you like a ambition sense to be like a Bill Gates or someone that created such a big thing for tech. um yeah, it honestly just created like a limitless life for me.